What would instantly destroy your life just by doing it once? Before we start with the first story, please hit a subscribe and ring the notification bell to stay updated with us. Story 1. Negligent homicide. I'm sure self-defense killings are not as difficult to handle as it is justified. Not saying everyone would be fine, but negligent homicide is another level. You drive drunk, text while driving, or not pay attention and smack into a pedestrian. You're going to live in a nightmare. Story 2. Road rage. Guy I went to middle school with jumped out of his car and beat a guy he was road raging with so badly that he was partially paralyzed by the end of it. Guy was 19 and got a 45-year prison sentence. Completely f***ed his whole life up and will only have a few years in the outside, and that's if he's lucky and lives that long. Story 3. As an older guy in the trades, f*** around with safety. I've seen enough people f*** their livelihood up by taking a stupid, unnecessary chance. It's always a shame when you hear of a young tradesperson die because you know they probably don't know better or didn't work with people who were teaching them how to do it safely. Number 1 rule is come home at the end of each day. Story 4. Jumping into an unknown body of water head first. Seen it happen where some idiot jumps in head first and paralyzes himself. Sad, but it happens in less than 5 seconds. Reply. This nearly happened to me about 10 years ago. I was at a lake in Minnesota with a former partner at her family's property, and there were 2 docks you could hang out on. One was too shallow to dive, but the other was fine. Stupid me was hanging out and drinking and totally forgot I was on the shallow dock, dove head first, and totally hit my face on the lake bottom. Felt a crunch in my neck as well. I'm very fortunate all that happened was I bruised up my forehead a bit. I think about that moment often. Story 5. Pet the bison. Jump in the hot spring, climb the rail, hike into the desert when everyone and their mother told you not to. National parks are a gauntlet of Darwinian temptation, and the warnings are everywhere. The NPS bends over backwards to try to save you from yourself. There's a sign on an Arches hike saying you shouldn't do it in high heels, and yet people refuse to learn. Story 6. Cheating on my wife. I know a couple of guys that brag about all the women they pull when they're on nights out, and their girlfriends' wives are at home. It makes me think that if I did that, I wouldn't be able to live with the guilt. How can they do it as if it's normal? Losing my wife, my kids, our family, and how hard we had to work to build it all. It's crazy. Story 7. Gasping at the wrong time. 4 years ago, I gasped and tensed up my neck the wrong way and at the wrong time and heard something slip in my neck. I've been dealing migraines, visual snow syndrome, double vision, palinopsia, photophobia, and of course neck pain ever since and probably will be for the rest of my life. Story 8. Hitting a kid with the car by accident. Not the kid, but destroying his life by putting him in a wheelchair. I had a relative that did that. It's been 5 years and still thinks about it every day, and you can see the sadness in his eyes even if he laughs. Tried to put myself into his shoes for a moment. Knowing you took someone's everything, it eats my soul. Story 9. For some people, cocaine. I'm sure there are recreational users doing okay, but someone I know tried it once, and now it is pretty quickly destroying his life. The part that makes it worse is that the average person who sees him or knows him would never guess he has a problem. Those of us who know him really well see the changes pretty clearly, and it is very worrisome. He's always had an addiction issue with things, and this particular drug has just got a hold on him. He makes really good money too, so he can afford it, which also doesn't help. Story 10. Punching someone in the face just once. There are many cases where the person being hit has banged their head, suffering irreparable brain damage or death after being hit once, often when drunk. I've been in a few scrapes in the past when drunk, and it scares me to think how one action-reaction could have easily seriously hurt me or them. Story 11. This is kinda a little outside of the question and it's not me doing it, but if my dad dies before he really reconciles with me and shows me any affection or love, I think I'd be pretty destroyed. He has a lot of issues and grew up in a broken household, all that stuff. My mom constantly tells me he really cares about me, but the last time he really hugged me was when I was like 4. He never acted like a father, other than discipline. He never shared my interests, or talked to me, or wanted to spend time with me, and I really hated him for it. I was really lonely. He abused and neglected me, and he's definitely a better person now going to therapy. But he still hasn't taken any responsibility. He's still on the younger side, but just once before he dies, I really want him to be my dad. Story 12. Disposal of a body. My sister's baby daddy was living with his friend when his friend murdered someone in the woods behind some apartment complex and asked for help with the body. All he did was hold the flashlight while the man was put in a shallow grave. Even though the man was a drug-dealing pedophile, executing him was still f***ed up. My sister's baby daddy was in the car when it happened and thought his friend was going to buy drugs. His two friends left the car and met the dude in the woods by a dirt bike path. That's when it happened, and they went to ask my sister's baby daddy to help. After that night, he moved out of his friend's house and moved into our house, and apparently told my sister everything that happened because he didn't know what to do and was scared because his friend was a low-key psycho drug addict. We didn't know any of this until months later when the friend ratted on himself by bragging about it over the phone while his stepdad accidentally overheard. The police went and questioned my sister's baby daddy. They didn't consider him a suspect at the time, but were asking about his friend since he lived with him during the time frame of the murder. And that's when he just spilled the beans and told them everything. That's when my sister told me she knew what happened. They didn't have a case if it wasn't for him, and his public defender made note of that in court, but they still gave him 15 years for holding a flashlight. The two friends got life. My niece will be 17 years old when he gets out. That shows you just one mistake can change her entire life. Story 13. Hitting someone while driving drunk or half drunk, or having any alcohol in the blood actually. When I was younger, I didn't really care as long as I didn't pass the limit. So, I drank 2 beers and went on in my car. One night, I was driving in a 80 kilometers road, somewhere in the Campaign, no pavement and like quite far from any cities or villages. So, I was careless. At some point, I passed a person, walking on the side of the road, no lights on them or whatever. Nothing at all. I saw them the moment I passed them. Thankfully, nothing happened, but I didn't have a lot of room when I passed, since I was quite careless on a road where there's very little traffic. I was almost driving in the middle of the road. It's been, 5 or 6 years now, and from times to times, I think of this almost accident and how it could have easily killed someone and ruined their families' lives. And of course, I would be sitting in a jail cell instead of answering to this post. Since that day, I refuse to drink even one small glass of beer if I have to drive. Story 14. Engaging a very angry stranger who is doing something extremely hostile to a child. I can't help it. It's probably deeply rooted in a childhood incident where I saw an adult beat a fellow child into a bloody mess. The kid survived. The man was his father. He was arrested but then later released because of desperate pleas from his wife. He was the breadwinner. I was in the parking lot of a mall, and I saw a man swinging his son by his arm. The kid was crying. The father was yelling, and he shouted, "Keep it up, and you're gonna kiss pavement and I won't take you to the dentist afterwards." I felt an overwhelming instinct to lunge tackle the guy. My girlfriend grabbed hard at my arm, jolting me to my senses. We both called 911. Then the lunatic saw us on our phones. "Who the freak are you calling?" We quickly walked back to the mall, where there was security. By then, the guy calmed down a bit, shoved the kid in the car, and left. I was quick to take down the make, model, and license plate, then notified the police when they arrived. They shot off down the road in the direction I indicated. I don't know if they ever got him, but had I been alone, I might have assaulted the guy. So I have to brake check myself when I start to see an adult abusing a child. Story 15. I grew up earlier than most of you, in the 1980s, 90s. People would hand you a vial of cocaine or a White Cross pill, etc. You never worried about it not being what they said. I still like to party a little, but I would never just take a random pill or do a line that someone handed me, even if they said what was in it. They are putting fentanyl in everything these days. I recently read that somehow they're getting it in weed. Don't try the stuff if you don't know your source, people. It could be your last party. All right, folks, that's a wrap. If you like more of this, please hit a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. You can also share your thoughts in the comment below. I'll see you in the next video.